Rally as early as 7:30 a.m. with an opening program at the Angat Buhay Village in Lupi, Camarines Sur.
The Philippine Arena, dubbed as the world's largest indoor stadium, was filled nearly to the brim with supporters of the Marcos Duterte tandem for their proclamation rally this afternoon.
Meanwhile, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno was at the Santo Niño de Tondo Parish to attend a mass ahead of his proclamation rally this afternoon.
Presidential aspirant and Senator Ping Lacson, as well as his running mate, Senate President Tito Soto, arrived at the Imus Grandstand to kick off their campaign this afternoon. Meanwhile, presidential aspirant and Senator Manny Pacquiao is holding his proclamation rally in General Santos City's Oval Plaza. Presidential aspirant Leody de Guzman's camp is expected to push through with his proclamation rally in Quezon City. This is despite the possibility of an election offense because of the lack of a permit from the COMELEC.
COVID-19 has changed the rules for campaigns, but none of this stopped candidates from gathering crowds in their respective proclamation rallies across the country earlier today to begin the campaign season. As they pitch their platforms and programs, will the candidates also adhere to restrictions in their campaign activities? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to The Chiefs. I'm Robbie Alampay, and with us online, Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5, and Hiring Mandaluyong with me, Ed Lingao of One News. Chiefs, happy Tuesday.
Good evening.
Good evening. Happy Tuesday.
Happy ba mga eksena ngayon?
Happy ba? First day of the campaign period.
Well,
happy silang lahat.
Diba? For the first time since January.
Yeah. 3,000.
Ngayon, the bad...
Pero Tuesday ngayon eh.
Saka yung bad news, baka in 1 week, biglang mag-triple yan.
Oh, because of the super spreader campaigns.
And it's,
Oh.
well, it's no joke, di ba? Parang when you look at what happened to India, the surges in Indonesia and Thailand, this was all preceded, if not by religious events, by political rallies, particularly in the case of India. But of course, ang difference sa atin, bakunado tayo. That's a big context for us.
Yeah.
Mo lang yung Omicron is penetrating.
Highly transmissible.
Yan ang problema. Yan ang problema. At saka hindi pa naman ganun kataas yung vaccination outside Metro Manila.
At saka 8 million lang na booster. Diba? 8 million pa lang na boosters. So, the rest, their vaccines are probably already waning within them. So,
in the meantime, Ed, ikaw, what have you seen and what can you not unsee, Ed, from everything that you saw today?
Pwede mo ma-erase lahat. No, I think what really struck me was of all people, si Cal Yodi pa yung walang campaign permit.
I know, right?
I mean, until the very end.
Pero natuloy naman.
Until the very end, aktivista si Cal Yodi. Talagang hindi kumuha ng campaign ng permits.
Anyway, sige, marami po tayo pag-uusapan. Speaking tonight with Strat-based ADR President Professor Victor Andres Dindo Manhit. Dindo, welcome once again to The Chiefs.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Hi, sir.
Everyone.
Okay, so Dindo, we're finally here, day one of official campaigns. Lay the table for us. How should we see how everybody's positioning in this new baseline, day one?
When you look at different presidential campaigns, they are building on the posturing or the positioning that they have tried to build since the filing of candidacy since October. Now there will be limits to what they can project, given that we are in an actual campaign period, not like. So they use that period of October to January to define themselves. But now the challenge is, can they build a momentum? Of course, we know for a fact that recent surveys, that was December of last year, there are challenges that have been encountered by majority of the candidates, with the exception of former Senator Marcos.
Yeah.
So it's can they build the momentum, the other four? Can they look into their main opponent, which is Marcos, and really challenge him with the hope of bringing him down and build on their own constituency? You see Isko Moreno starting in Manila. Maybe will he build his campaign in Metro Manila and build from there? Senator Pacquiao starting in Mindanao. Will he use it as base? Because if they do well in both areas, that would be a problem for Senator Marcos, because these are the two areas, Mindanao and NCR, that has really boosted him to a little over 50% last December.
Pero sir, I'd imagine that it's more difficult now for candidates to build up their campaigns, considering na they're supposed to tone down their campaigns with the start of the campaign period. Kasi more regulations, more limits in terms of what they can do and how much they can spend, and so on down the line. So, yun nga po would the next 3 months make that significant a difference?
You can make a difference if you have built a campaign beyond traditional modes, which is number one, if it's a volunteer program. That means people really going out. That is the projection of VP Leni Robredo. Or a strong social media presence, which is Marcos. In the case of former Senator Marcos, hard to track, especially when you use social media influencers,
Yes, sir.
so-called independent groups. I've seen how Facebook accounts of even sports Facebook groups suddenly turning into a pro-Marcos group. Suddenly you see, how can you monitor the movement? So a
That's
lot
true,
of
yeah.
interesting initiatives that we can expect. But we also saw, and I've noticed it in our tracking this January, it seems that different forces outside the traditional campaigns of other candidates are focusing on Mr. Marcos also and challenging his posturing of being the most qualified, on his so-called historical revisionism. So those are things that can go beyond the limitations of COMELEC and can really project a different scenario if they are successful in penetrating the voter mind at this time and turn their minds.
There have been
In December, in December, we had this data, 38% of Filipinos are still open for changing their mind. That's a big number.
Yes, Dindo, but I was going to ask, no, because there have been several presidential forums since December, and everybody's looking forward to the surveys that usually come after a presidential forum, no? Eh, nakailan na tayo, pero parang wala pa tayong nakikitang survey, no? So, I'm just curious,
Ang
have the
magandang nangyari,
forums
Lucy,
really changed minds or, changed the configuration as we know it?
So
Yeah.
what I've noticed, Lucy, something happened that maybe beyond our control. The Omicron delayed the surveys. So the legitimate survey of Social Weather Station, I'm emphasizing legitimate because we're seeing surveys coming out of nowhere, new brands, no? Social Weather Station, Pulse Asia are delayed, and they are expected, I think, in the next few days. And they have covered from the Jessica Soho period up to your KBC.
Yeah, so
Hopefully. So that would be a good gauge in terms of opportunity to see some movements, maybe, to see some traction. Or is there really a misstep when you don't attend this kind of coverage? So hopefully, we see something. No? If we
Tsaka
do,
yung
it's God's will, no? Suddenly.
Yeah. Hindi, tsaka yung mga undecided, di ba? Kasi yun ang sinasabi ng lahat. If there's anybody who will be influenced most by the presidential forums, di ba? Yung mga undecided.
What we have
is that, yeah.
Small undecided. We have a small undecided already. What we have is 38% that can change their
Willing to
mind.
change their mind.
That's not undecided. They have a person
Okay. Those are
they
soft votes.
prefer now,
Yun ba yung sinasabi
but they
mo?
can cage.
Yeah.
The 38 soft, no, as of December that we saw. And in the 38, I believe that they're still soft beyond that, especially if suddenly they realize this person should be made accountable for some of the things that he said or he did not do. So that 38 could even increase. No? So we see that number. I'm hoping to see some numbers in terms of soft support pa rin, end of January. So I'm waiting for those data coming from Pulse and Social Weather Station.
Wait, Pihaya, in the meantime, President Duterte finally came out after his exposure to COVID kagabi, no? And one of his significant statements was he is not yet endorsing any presidential candidate at this time. What do you read into that? Or do we have to read anything into that?
You don't need to read anything. His campaign machinery, those that we have tracked in 2016 are with Mayor Sara. Just look at the names of Ibasco, Lavinia, the core group, the so-called Davao campaign. They're there already. Maybe that's why the president is not endorsing anyone.
Hey,
But they are actually endorsing the standard bearer of his daughter.
Sa akin kasi burden pa, if you endorse the standard bearer, you might carry the burden of the president, especially on issues like Pharmally. So I'd rather that you don't carry a burden. So it's a good strategy on their part. But we can see the coalition in the House of Representatives are hosting the campaign of Marcos and Duterte around the country. We're tracking that in our Democracy Watch initiative in our country. So we see the machine of the coalition of the president. He does not need to endorse. And the non-endorsement is even a positive to the Marcos Duterte, because people will say, he's not connected with any of the challenges or the failures of this COVID. So it's a good strategy.
yeah.
So let's set that aside and let's just define them that that's the tandem of the administration, maybe not the cabinet. That's a different discussion. The cabinet of the president maybe is totally different from their views with regards to politics.
I
May
think
social
we only...
may distancing din siya from the standard bearer.
Yes, and it could be helpful for the standard bearer.
Dindo, we only have about 3 months basically from now until May 9. And for a lot of people, it's napakaiksi. A lot of people are also saying maraming pwede mangyari. We forget that October was also basically just a little over 3 months ago. Taking a look back over the past 3 months, and for that matter, looking at the 3 months that people had in past elections, how much has changed in the past 3 months and how much can still change in the next 3 months as demonstrated by other elections?
What I noticed, Robbie, January, which is unique, suddenly campaigns saw that their opponent is Marcos. There were two campaigns who were trying to get the support, the base of President Duterte, and it did not go to them. I'm referring to, because when you see these numbers of Mr. Marcos at 50%, what I see is a consolidation of votes from a Duterte base of supporters, which I see at 30% and maybe at 20% of Marcos. They consolidated. So we saw a misstep on the part of Pacquiao and Mayor Isko, Senator Pacquiao, because they were trying to get the votes of the Duterte camp. But this January, you started seeing them aggressive. Now, pinpointing weaknesses or even what they consider as opportunities to take away votes from Marcos. So if I see Pacquiao rising in Mindanao, and that's where he started his campaign in General Santos City, or even Isko Moreno, who decided because of Omicron to stop his campaign but stay in Metro Manila. And also, and in the part of VP Lenny, being aggressive against Marcos, but also generating voter or volunteer support. So if we see, imagine a few drop, 5%, 3%, that will be interesting come end of March. But if we see the consistent numbers after the end of March, maybe the elections are over.
Okay. But
So
where
things
does
are
that
happening in the next 2 months.
But where does that put, for example, and how does that position, for example, you mentioned Isko Moreno, on the one hand becoming more assertive against Marcos, but on the other hand, everybody's still saying he's not giving up on his hope of getting the endorsement of President Duterte.
It's a totally different posturing, because he is hoping that as people look at the weakness of Marcos, the votes of Duterte might transfer to him, especially in his core area, which is Mega Manila. So that's a possibility. I'm not saying it can happen, but maybe their strategy has focused on that now. Or when Senator Pacquiao issued a strong statement about corruption and PCGG, the reason why Marcos is strong, when you break down the demographics, 64% in Metro Manila and 61% in Mindanao. That goes down to 40. That's a competitive race for everyone in those two areas only.
Okay, Dindaman hit of strat-based ADR. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Professor.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening.
And as for us, we'll take a break. Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back.
Welcome back to Chiefs, and now joining us is Senate Blue Ribbon Committee Chairman, Senator Richard Gordon. Gordon is also seeking re-election this coming May. Sir, thank you for joining us and welcome back to the Chiefs.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Senator.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Amy. Good evening, Robbie.
Sir, you're coming to us from Bicol, is that correct?
That's right. That's right. We just finished the rally here. I'm a guest candidate of Lenny Robredo, and I came in because I wanted to see for myself how strong Bicol was, and boy, was I amazed. I mean, it's all Lenny here, obviously, because it's her hometown.
It's your bailiwick. Mhm.
But more importantly, there's total support for Lenny from what I see.
Yes, sir. Sir, of course, we want to go into politics, but before that, segue muna ako sa Farmally. As of yesterday, you were quoted as saying that so far 8 senators have already signed the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee report on Farmally. And I was wondering if we have any updates, kasi you are, of course, looking for hopefully a majority of the Senate signing in. Ilan na po ngayon?
I have 8, and I have learned not to be disappointed because at times I think the Blue Ribbon has outlived its usefulness. When it has a large number of people and it becomes partisan, then you lose the effort of trying to make the right decision. Because what comes in would be their fear of offending their patron or offending somebody. So truth suffers. But I'm not concerned about that because the whole country, and it is reflected here in Bicol, everywhere I go, people are saying their admiration on the Senate for its Farmally investigation, and they want to see people punished. Mm-hmm. So that is my concern. In reality, the 3 or the 4 that have not yet signed, 2 I've not been able to contact. They said yes, but the 2 says they cannot sign at the moment because they want to amend, because they want to change. They do not agree with the breach of trust that I recommended with the president. I really feel that.
Sir. Yes, Senator Ping was saying that he plans to interpellate you on it because he feels that the charge is so serious and that it shouldn't be left hanging in midair unresolved. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I wasn't quite clear what Ping wanted to do. I know that he wants the guilty parties to come out. If he's worried that breach of trust means that we have to go to impeachment, he's correct. There is still time for impeachment. The ombudsman can file it, but there is no more time for the House to convene and try the president for impeachment proceedings. Or maybe, I don't know, I hope I'm wrong, Mr. Lacson fears that if he endorses the breach of faith, he might antagonize the president and lose whatever his support there is for him in Mindanao. I have perished that thought a long time ago, and I feel that this country ought to learn how to discern the truth and how to make decisions based on the truth. But of course, I can be disappointed, and I'm ready to be disappointed, because in reality, what is most important is that we have closure on these cases. And if we cannot have cases, if we cannot have any closure, then we lose our confidence and our trust with our government and with the Senate.
What's the most that you can probably get out of this in terms of, well, the justice that you feel it should be served?
Well, I'm pretty sure that Michael Young, up to Michael Young, Lin Wei Chong, his confrere who we discovered in the last few hearings as having a carte blanche to withdraw money from whatever is being paid by PSDBM to Farmally. All these guys can easily be deported, and I asked the Department of Immigration about that. There's no hindrance. All you have to do is file a case. There doesn't have to be a trial. And so long as the case is filed, they will be considered notoriously undesirable on an Al Capone issue. They have not paid their taxes. And if they want to go deeper, then they can go deep into corruption and perjury, because they've been lying and they say that they have not been involved, and yet it was found that they were involved. Now with the rest, like Lau,
government officials. Yeah.
Mr. Lau is definitely going to get caught with his hands in the kitty, along with the deputy assistant, who is now deputy ombudsman. Why? Because there are grounds when you start talking about a public bidding like this, they have to make sure that they follow the three measures. It's legal, that they have technical capability, and that they have the financial capability. How can a 625,000 peso corporation have financial capability? And how can this technical aspect of this guy being an agent, if you will? They're all agents. They're not producing anything, and yet they won the bid. So there was absolute favor being heaped upon this particular company in contradistinction. Filipino corporations like EMS, who were asked to produce these products, they were discriminated and they even lost money.
Yeah, Senator, ako yung tanong ko is on the other side. I won't ask about what's the most that we can expect. Ang tanong ko is what's the least that we can expect. A lot of course, ang tanong ng mga tao is mag-e-election na eh. Election na lang ang usapan dito. Now you have recommended charges. Hopefully the institutions, NBI and so on can step in and start the process. But how much of this can the public have confidence that our justice and legal institutions can take it this far? And sa totoo lang, how much of this can actually be thrown a spanner by the elections?
Anybody can file a case against the president after his term. Anybody can file against these people anytime, principally because these are crimes committed, and if they file a case and they execute an affidavit, they will be able to file a case against these people who have wronged the country at the time when we were really suffering and reeling from the pandemic, and they took advantage of that and they stole billions of pesos. Now, I'm not ready to say, wala na mangyayari dyan. Iyan ang problema sa atin eh. We always say wala na mangyayari dyan. Kaya talaga wala nangyayari. So we are a country that is totally, absolutely helpless because we right away say we cannot do it. And once you say you cannot do it, your doubts become traitors, as Shakespeare would say, and prevent you from doing the good you oft might win by fearing to attempt.
Well, Senator, si President Duterte, he said he will tackle the issue later. Although for the first time, he mentioned your report last night, but significantly, he did not mention you. Pero sabi niya, there will be time to answer the issues there. What do you think of his comments about
Well, his comments are quite safe because he is expecting the House and to follow the House that since we did not get the majority, it cannot be tackled in Congress. But nonetheless, the point is, all these are sworn statements made by the people concerned. And those sworn statements can be used against them in any court of law. And we can use that against them. So I'm not worried about that. President Duterte definitely has a lot to answer. I don't want to hit him, but he was the one who started talking about, oh, huwag kayong makinig sa COA. Oh, huwag kayong makinig dyan sa Senado. Falsifikado lahat yan. Nagmumura pa siya, ini-intimidate na kami. And then he kept defending Michael Young. Ang dami-daming pictures. Hindi ko na ginamit yung pictures. Pero makikita mo, si Michael Young was involved. He was lying down to his teeth and he was caught. And then all the Darganis were, using the money that they got to buy 25 million peso Lamborghinis and Porsches worth 13 million. And my gosh, ano pa ba ang kailangan ng tao para magising? If they're going to still allow themselves to be perpetually, hoodwinked by these people, talaga wala nang pag-asa ang ating bayan. Ako hindi naniniwalang walang pag-asa ang ating bayan. I don't believe that just because somebody is very strong in the election or he is the president, that he is invincible. There have been many, many cases where people have gone to jail. Even the president of Korea, the lady president, was jailed and they didn't have to go to court against her. She was jailed. Or for that matter, remember the Prime Minister of Thailand, he was exiled. Or for that matter, even Marcos was exiled. Or for that matter, Abdurrahim Wahid, of the president of Indonesia, on allegations of corruption and nepotism they did. All we need, and I'm telling you to your face, is the backbone. Walang backbone tayo mga Pilipino. And I'm sorry to say that. I wish I could say something that will affect the way our conscience leads us to make decisions, but you have to have a backbone. You have to be able to stand up against the mighty and tell them you cannot get away with it, and we will go out and help and really try to prosecute you, and we will do everything in our power to do so.
But you also know, sir, on behalf of the public, there are also a lot of people who will say that, hey, we're in civil society, we're doing the legal work, we're volunteering our time, we're doing the lonely fights for indigenous people, to fight corruption. We've been calling for FOI, we've been calling for transparency all along. And a lot of people will hear you and say that, backbone, we've committed our lives to this. The obstacle has always been the institutions. The obstacle has always been, whether it's the police, the DOJ, for that matter, even Congress, and so on. They're saying, why is it our problem, or why say that against us when we can tell you so many people, hundreds of people, thousands of people, fighting the lonely fight, having the backbones, and they're saying it's the institutions that let us down every single time.
Let me tell you a little story. I became a lawyer because my father was assassinated. I was in Procter & Gamble. I decided I would go to law school and really fight it out. And I've met every Secretary of Justice. I even wrote a letter to Mr. Marcos when he commuted the sentence, and I said, why did you commute? Before you can be merciful, you must be just. And up to now, I'm still fighting that lonely fight. Pinabaliktad pa. Naglagay ako ng plaka para mahuli yung mga bumabaril na nakamotorsiklo. Ginawa nila doble plaka. That's a lie. It's not double plaka, it's single plate. And by the way, that is accompanied by an operation center na kung magre-report ang tao na tumatakbo yung motorsiklo na walang plaka, he can be stopped and he can be arrested because baka maging danger sa society. You never stop. And I think any talk from us, responsible people who we think of ourselves as intelligent, when we start talking like that, we discourage instead of encourage. That's the way it is. The whole world, Hitler took about 13 years before he was finally deposed. Marcos took a long, long time before he was finally deposed. Everybody takes a long while. But if we give up, then it's the kind of definition that will be told the Filipino. Hanggang dyan na lang ang Filipino. We are a country that decides, well, I want to be another nationality. I want to give up on this.
What about the procurement service of the DBM? Are you making recommendations to at least, I don't know, will you abolish it? Are you recommending to remove that unit? Yeah.
The consensus is to abolish PSDBM. That was part of the Marcos regime attempt to try and make procurement faster. But in reality, that is not the real problem. The real problem is we have made all our laws so difficult to enforce, corruption can easily come in. I pray for the time when we can have enlightened leaders, and that's why this election is important. You need people who know what they're doing so that they can change the law properly and make it work. We do our laws as if it was the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that. You should say, this is what you can do, and if you don't do it this way, you get creamed. You get punished for that. But you know, it really is a question of attitude. And so I think it will take a long while, and maybe I'm willing to wait. I still have, 80 is now the senior age of seniority. I think that there's a lot of good time to be able to do and never give up. Because if you give up, well, look at your grandchildren and say, you gave up.
Sir, you talked about elections and commandments. There are new rules now from the COMELEC regarding the conduct of the campaign related to COVID. How is your campaign going?
I'm fine. I'm not complaining. I've done my work. I did not campaign during the before February 8th. I'm just campaigning now. I've been in the Odette. I've been in the areas there. I've been doing the work of the Red Cross in terms of making sure that we have all the equipment against Odette and all the equipment against the COVID pandemic. And to me, that's the best way of campaigning. You do your work correctly, and people will trust you. But if people expect you have to campaign, you have to give money, kailangan magbigay ka ng pera sa mga leader, they're not going to expect that from me. And I'd rather lose the election if that's the way it is. That's the whole darn problem. We don't want to change the system, and we play by the rules of the wicked. We play by the rules of the evil people. We do not play by the rules of what is right and what we good people must undertake.
But you think it will be easy to comply with the COVID rules, like distancing, for example, no pressing the flesh, no selfies even?
No, it's very hard when you're out there. I was out there tonight. People were grabbing me, taking selfies with me, and I can't do anything about it. I have my face covered, and then they'll say, can you take your mask for 3 seconds? Sure, I'll do that. I've been vaccinated. Yeah, you always take a chance. But we live by what the times are. The times are, this pandemic is going to be endemic. And I think we're in that stage already. And I'm not going to worry about that. What worries me is the fact that the hypocrisy of the system. Kunyari, bawal mag-early campaigning, pero kita mo, ang lalaki na ng mga billboard ng mga kandidato, hindi pa rin hinuhuli. Ang sagot ng COMELEC, dapat gumagawa sila ng judicial or legislative statesmanship. They should submit a bill and say, you should punish that. And then find out whether the senators or the congressmen are willing to do that. Why are we allowing people to overspend? And yet, they put out all the advertisements, or they put out all the ads. And what can we do about that? It's all a lot of kalokohan, because kunyari lang tayo sumusunod sa law, pero in reality, we're all violative of the law, and we're all quiet. We're all dumb, mute, and deaf.
Okay. Well, we'd like to say thank you to Senator Richard Gordon, who was joining us straight from Bicol. Sir, we hope you have a safe trip coming back home.
Oh, I enjoyed myself here. I thank the Bicolanos. They have good judgment. I think they will vote for me. But nevertheless, I am not overconfident. Whatever happens, God will speak to them, and hopefully they will do the right thing. Thank you very much, guys. I always enjoy being with the Chiefs.
Ingat po po.
Salamat, sir.
Salamat po. So, kape po tayo. Now, joining us is Undersecretary Maria Rosario Berjere, the spokesperson of the Department of Health. Yusek Berjere, thank you for joining us, and welcome back to the Chiefs.
Good evening, Yusek.
Good evening po.
Magandang gabi po. Good evening po to all of you.
Good evening po. Yusek, I'm sure you've seen the images on the first day of the campaign. Well, of course, we will get to health concerns later. Pero I wanted to ask you first about your assessment po dun sa kampanya, not the political side, the health side. Kamusta po yung pag-implement ng social distancing,
Hindi ba kayo,
minimum public health standards.
hindi ba kayo
kampanya.
inaatake sa puso sa DOH watching all of these
Baka hindi
things?
kayo makatulog mamaya.
Of course, no, it's kind of worrisome na nakikita po natin na talagang nagkakaroon ng mass gatherings, especially now that they are having these big events para i-declare yung kanilang mga kandidatura. So, nakikiusap pa rin ho kami sa ating mga local officials. We need to enforce whatever protocols we have. And also, nakikiusap po kami dun sa mga kandidato na sana po ay ipatupad po natin kung ano ang tama para hindi na po tumaas ang mga kaso sa bansa.
Yusek, idagdag ko lang po sa konteksto, and maybe you could respond to it, and also by way of reminding our people. But a lot of these scenes were also playing out outside of NCR. Where, when you say outside of NCR, by definition, that is a lower vaccination rate. No? So maybe you could speak to that as well.
Yes, no? So it becomes more bothersome and it becomes more parang nakaka-worry talaga dahil alam po natin that in other areas of the country, hindi po ganon ang antas ng pagbabakuna. We only have 5 regions currently na meron po talagang mataas na pagbabakuna, but the rest kailangan pa ho natin makahabol. So having said that and looking at what's happening right now, nakikita po natin yung mga campaign sorties. So nakikiusap pa rin po tayo sa ating mga kandidato, sa ating local government officials na please, let's try to enforce the safety protocols kasi alam po natin kung nandyan pa ang virus, meron tayong Delta, meron tayong Omicron, ayaw na ho nating pumutok uli ang mga kaso dito because we are all preparing for this new normal that we would want. So sana po lahat tayo magsama-sama at magtulong-tulong para ma-prevent po natin ang further kung sakasakali na pagtaas uli ng kaso.
Pero sinabi na nga sa amin ni Senator Richard Gordon, napakahirap nga daw sundan yung health protocols. Kahit daw tumatanggi siya, nilalapitan siya, pinatatanggal yung mask niya, nagpapaselfie sa kanya. Are you planning any new initiative para medyo maayos yung enforcement ng, it's actually a COMELEC rule and they're saying it will violate election rules if hindi nasunod, pero ganyan pa rin na nangyari. Are you planning any new measures?
Yes, ma'am. We are in close coordination actually with COMELEC. No? So they have drafted the resolution already and they have aligned with the different protocols that we have. Unfortunately, enforcement is really weak. The enforcement should be there, monitoring should be there, and sanctions should be enforced. No? Dapat may sanction para po nagkakaroon ng parang takot din o kaya ay konsiderasyon din naman po. No? Kasi alam naman natin na talagang dudumugin tayo ng tao pag nagpunta tayo dyan. So at the very least, ma-enforce natin yung protocols at sana po mag-umpisa na po yan sa mga kandidato natin.
Well, Yusek, hindi nakakatulong na bumababa ang bilang ng nagko-COVID. So, hindi rin maiwasan, syempre, na maging complacent, ang lahat na feeling nila, ayan na, tapos na. And there's always this talk about COVID now becoming endemic. How would you really put that in proper context? Para rin hindi nakaka-alarma on the one hand, na parang nananakot. On the other hand, para rin alam din ng tao na, teka lang, hindi pa ito completely eliminated.
Yes, ma'am. No? So, unang-una, we had been trying to clarify this concept of endemicity mula pa ho nung 1 linggo dahil ang daming tao na sinasabi endemic na tayo, malapit na, no? Unang-una, kapag sinabi nating endemic, it doesn't mean that it's going to be a milder disease. Ganun pa rin, ano? Pero kapag endemic state po kasi, ang mga kaso, it's stable, it's already predictable, it is manageable. Tapos nakikita na rin natin, pag sinabi nating endemic, may equilibrium na yun atin pong bakunahan or yung immunity ng population at saka yung trends ng kaso. So ibig sabihin, no matter na tataas ang mga kaso, we can manage it because yung immunity natin mataas na. One best example that we always give would be measles, for example. Ang measles po o ang tigdas, binabakunahan po natin ng mga bata. Dumadating po tayo every year dun sa punto na dumadami yung susceptibles kasi hindi sila bakunado. tsaka po nagkaka-cycle na nag-outbreak ang tigda sa atin. So if you would notice, it would happen around every 2, 3, or 4 years, no? At the most, nagsa-cyclical po ng outbreaks ang measles. Kasi doon dumadami yung mga batang tumanda na hindi na po nabigyan ng second dose o na-miss out, dumadami yung susceptibles, nag-outbreak tayo. Pero ang measles, talagang endemic siya sa bansa
Endemic na.
natin. Manageable siya, predictable ang numbers niya. Pero pag dumating sa punto na bumaba ang immunity, nag-outbreak tayo. So ganun din po ang endemic state ng COVID-19 kung sakasakaling darating tayo doon. Experts are saying it is not yet the time. It should be cautious optimism. Kasi ang dami pang variants na pwedeng lumabas, ang dami pang hindi bakunado, ang dami pa hong pwedeng mabuong variants dun sa mga taong hindi vaccinated. And gusto ko lang sabihin sa ating kababayan, bumababa nga ang kaso, pero may mga binabantayan pa ho tayo mga rehiyon. Kasi nahuli po sila nung pagtaas ng kanilang kaso. So hanggang sa ngayon, bumababa pa lang o hindi pa bumababa, nagpa-plateau pa lang ang kaso. So mataas pa. And this would be areas in the Mindanao, no? So meron pa ho tayo sa Region 9, 10, 11, and 12 na binabantayan. So hindi pa ho talaga mababa ang kaso. Kailangan tayo ay patuloy na mag-ingat kasi kahit isa lang ang may sakit sa Metro Manila, for example, pero kung magkakaroon tayo lagi ng mass gathering, kakalat at kakalat ang sakit na to.
Well, in this time, Joey Concepcion is already proposing na mag-alert level 1 by March 1, and sabi ng MMDA, meron ng nabubuong agreement among the Metro Manila mayors na suportahan yon. Are we ready for alert level 1 by March 1?
Well, for now, no, if we look at the numbers, may posibilidad naman talaga. Pero currently, moderate risk pa rin tayo, ha? Ang low risk lang po natin would be our healthcare utilization, yung mga ospital. Pero sa komunidad natin, ang mga numero ng kaso, mataas pa rin. So that's one. Number 2, kailangan din po natin isipin, dahil may metrics tayong ginagamit. So if ever ma-reach natin yung metrics, mababa na rin ang case classification, meron pa tayong tinitignan, yung vaccination coverage at saka yun pong ating safety seal. Because when that time comes that we de-escalate to alert level 1, kailangan sigurado tayo at ibibigay natin ng kumpiyansa sa ating mga kababayan that they will have safe spaces for them. Because we are going to ease na natin ang restrictions, di ba? Pwede na tayong pumunta sa ganito, sa ganyan, kakaunti na lang ang mga restrictions. So kailangan i-enable natin ngayon yung environment. Like establishment should have safety seal. Dapat ang mga tao rin nagsusunod sa safety protocols so that hindi tayo magkakaroon ng pagtaas ng kaso. Kasi kung bubuksan natin ng alert level 1 and our structures and our environment is still the same, pabalik po tayo dyan sa pagtaas ng kaso.
Ma'am, balikan mo
At the
po
rate
yung...
we're going, go ahead, Ed.
Oh, okay. Ma'am, balikan ko po yung day 1 ng campaign kanina. Meron ba kayong gustong sabihin o ipakiusap sa COMELEC? at sa mga kandidato. I mean, the rules have been out since November pa on campaigning in a pandemic. I don't know if you've read them, pero medyo mahigpit naman yung mga patakaran. In some ways nga, parang hindi practical parang hindi reality-based But I don't know. But, I don't know if you've seen it. Pero kayo po, from your end, what would you want to be done? Kasi mukhang hindi ito matatapos in the next 3 months. You might see more of this in the next 3 months.
Yes, sir. So nabasa naman namin yung resolution. Actually, it's in the papers kanina rin po that they have published it. Ang sa atin lang, gusto lang po natin syempre makiusap kapwa gobyerno, government office natin, siguro po yung monitoring and enforcement of these protocols. Kasi lahat naman po nung nakalagay dun sa resolution, it's aligned with our safety protocols. Kaya lang talaga, yung pagpapatupad ng ating mga local governments nitong mga protocols na to, ito po ang dapat bantayan. So COMELEC cannot do that alone. We need the help of the ILG so that we can oversee our local governments. We need the help of the different government agencies concerned para po maipatupad natin ng maayos, hindi po tayo magkaroon ng mga source of infection dito sa ating mga campaign sorties.
Ma'am, meron bang mga kandidatong gusto kayong pagalitan kanina? Without naming names. Sige, without naming names.
It's for everybody. When we talk, ang DOH naman po nagbibigay lang ng advice at saka guidance. Para po sa lahat ng kandidato, walang specific po na kandidato. Para lang po tayo lahat ay maging safe, At para syempre, yung pong mga pumupunta dun sa sorties nyo, maging safe din po. Yun din naman ang gusto natin lahat.
Pwede po kayong gumawa ng guidelines sa mga nagsasayaw sa entablado para safe din kami doon?
In fact, nabanggit niyo yung sanctions. Are you planning to write a formal letter to COMELEC na mag-impose ng sanctions?
Kapag ka po, kami naman po katulad ng sabi ko, no? So we have this interagency task force, tapos meron din kaming mga meetings with COMELEC, no? So sa susunod nating meeting, yun ho, mga pag-uusapan natin how we see the implementation of this resolution.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, si Lucy.
That's it.
Okay.
Awkward silence. May angel.
You were going to ask a question kanina kasi
Nakalimutan ko na eh.
There you go.
Forgot my question. Yeah, well, ano nga ba? I forgot. Sorry. Yeah.
Ayun na lang ang pediatric vaccination. Kumusta na po?
Ayun, that's the one. I was going to ask, does it look like we're going to have face-to-face classes, next school year if the pediatric vaccinations proceed at the pace that it's going now?
Well, first, of course, pediatric vaccination would be one of the considerations. Pero hindi lang naman po yun yung konsiderasyon para mabuksan natin ang ating mga eskwelahan. Malaking parte yan dahil gusto natin safe ang mga bata at saka ang mga guro. So pag tinignan po natin yung ating vaccination, I think base po no, sa ating ine-expect, we have been successful. No? Nakita po natin yung tiwala na binigay ng mga magulang. We have about 18,966 children vaccinated in 2 days. Marami naman din po ang nagbigay ng kanilang mga experiences. Ang isa pang gusto naming sabihin, out of all of these almost 19,000 children, wala po tayo nagkaroon ng severe reactions. Isa lang po yung reported natin, a minor reaction, an 11-year-old boy na nagkaroon ng kaunting rashes after and was immediately managed. So ito po ay isang magandang pinapakita. Sana po mabigyan pa ng mas maraming kumpiyansa ang bakuna para sa bata. Gusto ko lang sabihin sa ating mga magulang, mula po noong Disyembre, Nobyembre, napakababa po ng mga kaso ng ating mga kabataan, specifically 5 to 11. Pagdating po ng January, biglang tumaas po to 18,000 plus cases of COVID-19 among our 5 to 11 years old. That just goes to show because they do not have the vaccines, hindi po sila protektado. Ang isa pa hong tinitignan natin, ang mga kabataan, kahit bata sila, they can transmit the virus and can infect their vulnerable members of their family.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere.
Thank you, ma'am. Ingat po.
Thank you po. And that's all for this edition of the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. Ako po si Robbie Alampay.
I'm Mami Paminton of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Ed Lingao and we are One News.